Merry Christmas, guys. Good to be here.
Out of all the Pro Bowl players, Phil, that Chip Kelly has dumped over his last few years here, Djax, McCoy, Macklin, let's even throw Nick Foles, Evan Mathis, Mike Vick, and Trent Cole into the equation, but really focusing on Djax, McCoy, and Macklin, is the deep threat of Deshaun Jackson the player and threat that they missed the most, in your opinion, Phil?
Yeah, I think so. I would agree with that. I think, they miss everybody that Chip has sort of sent off. And it's kind of sad to even have that conversation. We talk about it quite that way. Chip Kelly's just basically flushed away, so much talent in just such a short time. And the plan to get better didn't really seem to have worked out all that well this year. But I do think that, when you look at the second half of Chip's first year, 2013, when Foles was, having that great run, looked like, they actually went to the Pro Bowl and won offensive MVP of the Pro Bowl that year. That second half of that season, when Foles was so good, a lot of that was because, he would just fling the ball down the field and, there's Deshaun Jackson running under it. He has that effect on games. It makes quarterbacks better. I think he's having a little bit of an effect on Kirk Cousins right this minute. So I think overall, LaShawn McCoy, obviously, they didn't replace him adequately, and he was a huge part of their offense for 2 years. They certainly miss him. But I think that Deshaun Jackson and what he brings and how he changes games is something that just can't be underestimated.
Yeah, Phil, since coming back from that hamstring injury in Week 9, we've been talking about it. Touchdowns of 56, 63, 28, and 77 yards for Djax. I know that Jackson spoke to the Philly media in a conference call just moments ago. Didn't really have too much to say. He did not go the Shady McCoy route of ripping Chip Kelly in his return to Lincoln Financial Field. Were you surprised that Djax kind of remained professional and kind of mature with it?
I was a little surprised, but mostly because, last year he didn't want to do the conference calls when the Eagles played Washington in those two games. He did not play. He was hurt early this year when the Eagles played Washington, so he wasn't even really in the mix and didn't do the conference call then. But he agreed to do the conference call this week, which was a surprise. First time he's done it since his departure. And we figured, if he wanted to do it, maybe he had something he wanted to get off his chest, or some statement he wanted to make. But really, he played it straight down the middle. Just talked about the focus is, where he is now and what they're trying to accomplish. He cares about winning this game because it'll get them, a step closer to the NFC East title and to the playoffs, and they haven't been there in a while. And, what effect it has on the Eagles, he just said that it doesn't matter to him at all. I don't think that's 100% true. I believe that he would love to see the Eagles, kind of standing on the sideline looking downtrodden while the Redskins are celebrating. I can't imagine that would be a bad outcome for Deshaun Jackson. But that's kind of what we've been talking about. In a couple of weeks here, you have LaShawn McCoy come back with Buffalo. Now you have Deshaun Jackson coming back. It's a strange setup that Chip Kelly has created here, where Pro Bowl players that the Eagles drafted come back to the link pretty much every other week, and they just have to deal with them, and that raises the stakes for everybody. And I'm not sure that's for these players in the Eagles locker room today, most of whom, don't know, just didn't play with him, don't really, have anything to say about him or really care about him that much, except as an opponent. They got to deal with him and all this extra energy. It's not something that they really needed or welcomed. That's all part of what Chip Kelly has created.
Phil Sheridan, ESPN Nation's Eagles reporter, talking Redskins on 97.3 ESPN. Phil, you mentioned that turnover. People in that locker room don't even want to realize what it's like to play with Deshaun Jackson because many of them weren't there. Continuity is a big issue in this league. When you look at the disappointment of this Eagles season, can you point to anything bigger than the changes and that continuity or lack thereof of sort of taking things off the rails a bit?
I think that was a big part of it. Making that much change and, creating that much turnover have an impact, I think, under the best of circumstances. But I think it has been exacerbated to some degree by the simple fact that, Chip Kelly really made misjudgments on some of these big changes. I think you can look at this point and say, I'm not sure this is 100% the best offense for Sam Bradford. If he had his druthers, there might be some other things he would want to do. But he's been a relatively successful acquisition. I mean, he's not, he hasn't set the world on fire or the league on fire. But, allowing for the fact that he got hurt, missed a couple games, he's certainly shown improvement. The Bradford we've seen the last couple of games is pretty close, to the kind of guy we expected. But, it hasn't been great, but he's been pretty good. But otherwise, DeMarco Murray, Tito Alonso, these guys just have not been, Byron Maxwell, these guys have not been, the kind of fits that, we expected, anybody would have expected. Certainly the Eagles would have expected. The money that they pay some of these guys, there's a lot went into those decisions, and they just weren't good decisions. I mean, DeMarco Murray was hailed as like a great fit for this offense. He's going to be so much, more effective than LaShawn McCoy because of his running style. That has not turned out to be the case at all. He's not, not a fit at all in this offense. Byron Maxwell is going to be a shutdown corner. Has not really been a shutdown corner. He's a solid player. That's all he ever was, though. He's a solid player. For $63 million over 6 years, you kind of expect a little more than a solid player. So, yeah, I think it's a combination. You make that much change, and you risk that much, that much more risk of this change just not working out that well. And I think it's been a combination of those two factors.
All right, Phil, let's shift a little gears and look at this game, which is obviously there's no room for error any longer for the Eagles. It's win out or go home. It starts with the Redskins. Give us a little update on Benny Logan, because that's kind of a situation where there was a report out last night that he's done for the season with a torn calf. Chip Kelly says day to day. What's your feeling from the NovaCare complex?
Yeah, I saw Benny walk out of the locker room this afternoon after practice, and he did not practice, and my guess is he will not play Saturday night. I don't know about the Giants game, but he walked out. He didn't have any ice on him. It wasn't looking at all like a guy that was in any real pain or anything. So, that's different from playing football, obviously. But, Chip basically said that report was not correct, that he's a day-to-day guy, and they haven't ruled him out at all. Bo Allen, who will start in his place most likely, was talking very much like he expected to play Saturday night. So my guess is that you won't see Benny Logan Saturday. That's a big loss for them. When he was 100% healthy early in the season, he was a really big part of their effective run defense. As he kind of wore down and his knee was hurting him earlier, now he's got a calf problem. He's a big man, and when your legs are bothering you and you're that kind of size, and it takes away your explosiveness a little bit and your ability to kind of move the way you normally do. It's a big part of his game. So I think that kind of their decline in their run defense overall in the last month or so may have a lot to do with Benny Logan not being 100%, plus other guys not being 100%, but certainly Logan is a big part of that.
Phil, you write today, or I think yesterday maybe, about this game, and the headline reads, let me see here, let me get up to the headline reads, Deshaun Jackson tough, but Eagles must also stop the run, and that really goes to the point of this run defense. And in this article, the quote, the challenge this week is to cover Jackson on the deep routes while maintaining a strong run defense. This is a run defense that just gave up 182 yards to David Johnson Sunday against Arizona. And Kirk Cousins also, you're right, is good with the play action. He's very athletic. Is that really how to win this game, Phil, is make sure you stop Djax, but don't give up 182 on the ground again?
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. I mean, not even winning this game. That's staying in this game. You saw them against Arizona. They knew that the Cardinals are a team that, with Carson Palmer and that array of wide receivers, that they like to go deep. They're going to take 6, 7, 8 shots a game pretty much every week. And they did. They took a lot of shots down the field. They had some balls dropped. So it's not like the Eagles' pass coverage was like 100% perfect. But they, for the most part, did not get the big plays that they normally get, and the Eagles were worried about them getting. But in playing that defense and being effective against the deep ball, the Eagles basically just gashed in the run game. It was ugly, and I had not really. I don't remember overhearing of David Johnson before I watched him, go for epic numbers against the Eagles just the other night. So they can't afford that, obviously. And when they played Washington in October down there, they were winning that game, and they ended up losing it because Washington drove 90 yards in the fourth quarter as time was running out, and that drive got started by a couple of really long runs, 10, 12-yard runs, got them out of the hole, got the drive going, allowed Cousins to start working play action and throwing the ball, loosened up the Eagles' defense. So, stopping the long ball is really important. Obviously, if you have Deshaun Jackson out there, it's going to be something you have to deal with. But if you stop that at the expense of being able to, stop a running back at all, it's going to be a long night.
And that's kind of what you pointed out in the Arizona game. They kind of held Carson Palmer in check, but you forgot about the run defense in David Johnson. And, I mean, yards per carry, Phil, and I believe that some of the media guys asked this to Chip Kelly or even Billy Davis this week. The yards per carry, I mean, this defense, it was good. The run defense was good earlier on the season. Then, I mean, after that Panthers game, it just took a huge fall, and now they're basically last in the league yards per carry. What do you attribute that to? Is that the loss of Jordan Hicks? Is that just the inside linebackers not really being good downhill? What do you attribute this run defense, the run defense struggles to, Phil?
Yeah, I think all of the above. I mean, we've talked about Benny Logan. I think somewhere in there, he should have just started turning up on the injury report with a knee injury. He was missing the occasional practice. Didn't seem like a big deal, but somewhere in there, I think that was part of it. Jordan Hicks has given them some really good play at inside linebacker. Now they went out and they stocked up at that position in the offseason, and Kiko Alonso was supposed to be a real impact player for them. He has not been that to this point, at least. And whether that's his health or the system, and he's not really fitting into it that well, it's a combination of those things, maybe. I don't know, but missing Jordan Hicks, not getting what you expected from Kiko Alonso. Michael Kendricks has looked a little bit lost at times as well. He's been a solid player. D'Amico Ryans just doesn't look like he's 100% back from that Achilles that he tore last year. And, at his age, you start to wonder if he's ever going to be 100% again. So, they had all these guys that were going to be, playmakers at inside linebacker, but they're not making any plays. And, in fact, you see them a lot of times, sort of kind of moving, parallel plays, and, running backs end up running by them or getting tackled for a 7 or 8 yard gain. So it's not been particularly impressive defense in terms of stopping the run. And at those positions, in the 3-4, guys like Fletcher Cox, Benny Logan, Willie Stelpe, Cedric Thornton does a pretty good job as well. Those guys are there to tie up blockers and, kind of force running backs into certain areas and let the linebackers come and clean it up. And when the linebackers aren't cleaning it up and they're not making tackles, and losing Jordan Hicks was a bigger impact than anybody could have imagined. When they took him in the third round, we all wondered why. They used a third-round pick on a guy. Now you wonder about if losing was one of the things that caused them to kind of decline all season. So, that's all been a big part of it.
Yeah, definitely. The underachieving of those inside linebackers with the big names especially has been a large storyline. But, Phil, I wanted to ask you, how much stock do you put in the fact of Chip Kelly's offense hurting the defense? Just because if you look at it again this year, Chip Kelly kind of always poo-poos that time of possession statistic, but the Eagles are sort of, their defense at least, is on the field equivalent of 18 NFL games a season. So basically those guys are playing 2 more games than the average NFL team. Do you think that has an effect on this defense as we get later in the season, as we are now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done these numbers a couple times over the last couple of years because, I'm just kind of curious about how this all plays out. And the Eagles, every year they're, 4 or 5 minutes, behind everybody else in terms of time of possession on offense. And yet they run the most offensive plays pretty much every year the last couple of years. So they're running more plays than anybody else, but holding the ball for less time than anybody else. I mean, it's a really remarkable combination. So they're doing, that's Chip Kelly's way. He believes that plays run is all that matters, that, just holding the ball isn't important in most situations. And the fact is, defense is going to wear down. The other thing is they are running a fair number of plays this year, but the Eagles are just not scoring a lot of points. If you look at their, just basically their results all year, they're like in the 20-point range, or under offensively in an awful lot of games. I mean, they beat New England, but they got 3 return touchdowns in that game. They got the game against the Jets that they won. They got a return touchdown in that game. They got a touchdown return from Jordan Hicks, interception return in the Dallas game, which, they had 27 points in regulation, scored 33 because they got a touchdown in overtime. But if you take away the defensive touchdown, that's only a 20-point game there. So, even their big wins, for the most part, the New Orleans game is the only game where the offense scored in the 30s all by itself. And, Chip Kelly's first 2 years, the offense was scoring in the 30s like almost every week, or at least every other week, and certainly close to 30. 30 was more like the normal. Now 30 is like something they can't even get to. And you're not scoring points, and you're putting your defense out on the field and forcing them to defend longer. This is what you're going to get.
Yeah, Phil Sheridan, ESPN.com, NFL Nation. And Phil, that stat, Chip Kelly is winless in the NFL when his offense and his team fails to score 17 points or less. I mean, they just cannot win low-scoring football games in the NFL, and a lot of times, especially in December in the playoffs, sometimes you're going to have games like that, and Chip Kelly has not been able to do that, Phil. I wanted to ask you about Zach Ertz. This is a guy, high draft pick, second-round pick. I think a lot of fans were maybe not expecting Rob Gronkowski, but, one of the better tight ends in the league. And going back to that game last year against Washington, 15 catches, 115. What happened in that game? I know Sanchez was at quarterback, but can we expect some, a high target level for Ertz in this coming game on Saturday, Phil?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, Ertz is it's an interesting case because, I expected him to have a big year coming off of last year and the way he finished up strong. He spent the offseason, going around, traveling around, like talking to people like Tony Gonzalez and Hudson Houck, the old Dallas Cowboys offensive line coach, to try to improve his blocking because he thought if he improved his blocking, he would be on the field more and that would give him more opportunities, to catch passes and stuff. I mean, he did a lot of stuff like that. Then he tore a core muscle, kind of an abdominal muscle, during training camp, early in training camp, had surgery on it, and really he was kind of conceded. The first month of the season, there was a lot of pain. He couldn't move as well. He wasn't as effective. So I feel bad for Ertz in that sense. He worked so hard to get better, ended up getting hurt, and came back and didn't miss any regular season action at all. But he wasn't really himself until lately. And I think he's starting to come around a little bit. The numbers are better. He's got more catches and yards than Tyler Eifert, who, for example, who was going to the Pro Bowl. So I mean, there's only 4 tight ends selected, and Ertz would have been the third of number 3 in that group in terms of yards and receptions. So he's a guy that has a lot of potential if he's healthy. And now you're dealing with a Washington team that he had success against last year, a team that has like a different starting safety almost every week. Their secondary has been kind of a mess all year, so there's really a good chance, I think, for Ertz to go off and kind of do, maybe not 15 catches. That's a franchise record that he set last year. But, if he gets the kind of attention that he should get from the Eagles, from Sam Bradford and Chip Kelly, he could put up some pretty big numbers in this game.
Okay, Phil, let's shift forward to the game and look at the Washington Redskins and how the Eagles match up against them. Obviously, this has been a team that has struggled mightily on the road as a whole. They finally got their first road win, but by field goal over Chicago. Where do you think the Eagles have the advantage in this particular matchup?
Well, that's a good question. Right now, when the Eagles' offense is running well, when it's going the way it's supposed to. If they can get it rolling, get the running game going, and I hate to say it because I don't think there's much chance it'll happen, but if you can get DeMarco Murray kind of playing the way you expected him to for a game, get him invested, get him involved early, and get that going a little bit. I mean, I think you can do a lot that way. I mean, just kind of control the ball. You're not going to slow it down and hang on to the ball and just play ball control like the old Bill Parcells coach team. But if you can go out there and sustain drives, just sort of get some points, especially early, and not fall behind and kind of force that, abandoning the run and throwing the ball out, all that kind of stuff that happens when they fall behind. Avoid that stuff. Just hold on to the ball, sustain drives. Even if there's some field goals and whatever it is, just try to keep the Redskins offense off the field as best you can, and be efficient on offense. And in terms of defensively, it is just just trying to avoid the big ball, the long ball from Deshaun Jackson, because that can turn this thing ugly pretty quickly. He gets one of those early, and the Redskins get ahead, and the Eagles catch up. This could really go wrong for the Eagles fast.
All right, Phil Sheridan, ESPN.com, NFL Nation, covering the Eagles Saturday night, 8:25 kickoff. Phil, again, happy holidays to you. Hopefully we can catch up.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Take care, and Merry Christmas.